Thanks, everybody. It is really, truly a pleasure to be here with you all this morning. I didn't expect to see this many people. Wow, this is great. Listen, I feel incredibly privileged. I'm a kid who was born in a small apartment in New York City from two immigrant parents. Back in my day, we didn't have the plethora of programming you see on television today. There was one show that I would watch. It was every Sunday night, 7:30, right after The Wonderful World of Disney. It's called Magill of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Well, there were two hosts in that show. There was Marlon Perkins and there was Jim Fowler. And Jim Fowler was the guy, Marlon was the guy who kind of talked about things. He said, we're going to go out into the African Ocean. Jim was the guy who did all the cool stuff. I mean, Jim was jumping out of helicopters on top of caribou. I saw him net a jaguar in the Amazon with just a net, I watched him rappel down a mountain and grab a condor with one hand. This guy was everything I wanted to be. I said, that's what I want to do in my life. And I remember everybody telling me, you need to come up with plan B. You're living in a small apartment in New York City from immigrant parents. It's like so far out of your wheelhouse. Fortunately, my parents always believed in me. And to make a long story short, about, almost 40 years ago now, Jim was doing a national tour promoting Wild Kingdom. And he'd fly around to each city. And each city he went into, he would contact the local zoo and he'd say, do you have any ambassador animals you can bring to my presentation? He didn't want to fly around the country with these animals. It's stressful when the animals keep flying around with them. So he would ask, every zoo usually has ambassador animals, educational animals that we use for that kind of stuff. And listen, I never have been starstruck. In my career, I've worked with everybody from Michael Jackson to, Shaquille O'Neal. I've never been starstruck, but when I heard Jim Fowler was coming to town, I said, send me. And they did send me. It was at the Miami Beach Theater of Performing Arts. He was doing this presentation. I remember they sent me to his dressing room, had his name on his dressing room door, and I knocked on the door, and I'm shaking, and he opens the door. He's almost as tall as I am. But he's a bigger guy, and he had this incredible baritone voice. He would go, you must be wrong. Make a long story short, he became one of my most important, short of my dad, my most important mentor. We had a lifelong friendship that we nurtured for many, many years. He flew with me to Panama. We did projects with things like the Harpy Eagle. We did projects with cheetahs. We did things together, flying around, doing documentaries together. It's so rare that some kid grows up to be good friends with his hero, and he was my hero. He passed away a couple of years ago. I established a scholarship in his name at his alma mater just because of what he did for me. But one of the things he taught me that was so important, because today, everything is so sensationalized, and the messages we're giving to kids, especially about wildlife, is all wrong. Whereas I would watch Wild Kingdom and I'd say, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go out there and look at that, to go out and discover those things. I want to learn more about it. Today's show is like, when animals attack, the world's deadliest, river monsters. If I'm a kid watching this stuff, I'm not going to go outside because I'm afraid something's going to kill me. It's the wrong message. We're all caught up in sensationalizing this stuff. And now with the internet, and God forbid AI, the stuff I've been seeing with AI now that's so wrong and so incorrect. We're treading on very dangerous times with this stuff. We've got to get back to where we get a kid to go down this wildlife trail, to walk and see real life what's happening, to get these kids away from the television, away from the computer, get them outside. That's why refugees like this are so important, why this kind of wildlife is so important. You drive out into this island with all the things you went through with the hurricane, to see it coming back, to see the wildlife coming back. This is all a symbol of hope. Now my job has always been, I feel, and I want to preface this by saying, I work at the zoo, I've been there, I just actually announced my retirement after 46 years, but it's just my retirement working for the government of the zoo. The zoo is a county facility. 46 years working for government is enough. So now when you're working for the foundation, which is kind of like what this is for the refuge. And people say, God, you believe in wildlife. And some people are very anti-zoo, and I understand that. I want to clarify this. I would never, ever support taking an animal out of the wild to put it in captivity unless it was a last-ditch effort to save that individual animal's life or to save the species that it represents. And we've been able to do that with things like the California condor, the Arabian oryx, the black-footed ferret. These are all species that would be extinct today in the wild were it not for zoos. So that's important. But having said that, and zoos are trying to lead you to believe, we're breeding these animals to release them back. That's a lie. 99.9% of all the animals that ever born in zoos will never go to the wild. The zoo, however, provides very important windows into the wild. And when I was a kid, in a small apartment in New York City, my first contact with an animal was going to the Bronx Zoo. And when I looked at that animal eye to eye, something happened to me. A seed was planted in me that created this tree of passion that I lived with me to now. You know, I'm 66 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, geez Louise, I still feel like a kid when I'm around these animals. I drove down the trail, I was here at sunrise today, and you know, I was at that osprey nest there on the left-hand side, and all of a sudden, as I'm sitting there just waiting, oh, this osprey flies in with this big old bass, or whatever it was, their talons, and the other one's waiting for me, they're all eating. And I'm like, this is Christmas, I'm just like on my camera, I'm going, and you know, and it's so great because obviously, people have been respectful here. That nest is right off the road. And I said, okay, I went back in my car. And then I said, okay, they're eating. I want to step out a little bit and think, if they're going to fly away, they didn't pay any attention to me at all. And that's a great reflection. That shows you how we can coexist with wildlife. If wildlife learns that we're not a threat to it, we can coexist, we can observe this stuff. That's magical stuff out there. I said, oh gosh, I wish I could have everybody watching with me right now watching this stuff. The vocalization going back and forth, the tearing it up, oh, it's fantastic to watch. So these are the kinds of things we got to get more kids to do. We got to get them to go out and do this stuff because this is magic. You live in a priceless treasure of a natural world. Sanibel is, you know, people think about the beach, it's so much more than the beach. This place is really magical. So I started working at the zoo because I wanted to get close to these animals. I understood not everybody's going to get a chance to go to the Masai Mara, you know, to see a giraffe walking across the plains, to the Amazon to see a jaguar hunting. Most people never get to see that. However, you can go to a zoo, you can make that connection with an animal, and that hopefully will plant the seed to make you want to learn more, make you want to take care of those things. So that's the importance of zoos, if they do it right. Having said that also, zoos got to be very conscious of protecting animals in the wild. That's got to be their number one priority. That's got to be the end goal. Because at the end of the day, if the zoo is the last place where those animals can safely survive, zoos have failed. Zoos have failed because that would be tragic. That in captivity is the only place that these animals can survive. What we have to do, and zoos spend millions of dollars building these new exhibits. They call them habitats now. This is another thing that really kind of burns my crock a little. Let me tell you, I'll tell you why. Like, they understand now that, you know, they're going to have to be responsible for what they're doing. And the new AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, they say now, because, you know, I used to say, listen, this animal was born in captivity. Oh, no, you can't say that anymore. We have to say under human care. What's the difference? Don't insult our intelligence with semantics, okay? Let's be upright and honest about what's happening. So, what I'm saying is, if you're going to spend $2 million to build a new tiger habitat, you better allocate a significant portion of that money for conservation of the tiger in the wild. Because if you're just building big fancy cages, you're being a little hypocritical. And that's always been my point. My job has always been to connect people with animals, make people care. You know, there's an old saying that says, in the end, we protect what we love what we understand, and we understand what we don't. And my goal is to try to teach people to understand these animals and learn to love them, to want to protect them. Now, having said that, I also want to make sure extremism in any form is dangerous. There's no single animal life that's more important than a human life. And if we as conservationists start talking to people that way, we're never going to be successful. I've dedicated my entire life to wildlife. I've been to Africa 53 times working on conservation projects with everything from elephants to rhinos. But I'll tell you this, if I'm in the middle of the African bush with my wife and my kids, the last rhino in the world is in front of me, pregnant with the future of the species, and my kids are starving, and the only way I know to feed my kids is to kill the rhino's going to die. My kids are not going to go starving for any animal, and you can't expect anybody to think differently. You can't. What we have to do is we have to provide these folks with alternatives so they learn to conserve wildlife. Richard Leakey did the most incredible thing in Africa. What he did was, many years ago, when they started the whole safari thing, right? Oh, this is an ecotourism. People can bring money into Africa. Okay, what did he do? Who were the guys that he hired to be the guys to bring these people around to take pictures? Photographic guys, just the poachers. He hired the poachers, and people were going crazy. You're hiring criminals, you're hiring criminals. No, you're not. You're hiring people who know how to find these animals better than anybody else, and you're showing them that, listen, you bring them, and they shoot that animal with their camera, they give you money, and you can bring them back to shoot the same animal again. And it became, they understood the business, the economy of it. It's not wrong to think of ecotourism as a business, because that's what's going to save things. That's what saved the alligator here, folks. You know, in the 70s, it was an endangered species. Now we got more than we know what to deal with. Okay? Why? Because we farmed them, we made the meat legal, we made the skin legal, and I know people say, you know, there's an extreme view that says, oh no, I'm a vegetarian, I'm a vegan, whatever it is. It's not realistic in the entire world. When we look at the world, once there's a system, and I tell people, you know what, if you have a problem with an alligator being farmed for me, don't go to Publix and get yourself a ribeye, okay? If So we have to look at the broad picture. So again, we talk about animals, and this story I want to tell you is a story, if any of you have seen the movie The Lion King, this is the real Lion King, and I mean that. Every photograph you see here I've taken myself. I'm not exaggerating anything that I tell you. And what I want to point out to you, there's a word that's called anthropomorphic, which means you're giving human emotions to animals. And some of the pure scientists will tell you that's the wrong thing to do. Like I said, oh, look how happy that dog is. And the purists will say, you can't say that dog is happy. You don't know that dog is happy. That's a human emotion, being anthropomorphic. I'm going to tell you right now, I've worked with animals almost half a century. Animals have feelings, they have emotions. Anyone who's had a cat or a dog knows that they not only have feelings and emotions, but each individual animal of the same species can be different. They can have different emotions. Just like people, they can be different. So that's what I want to take to you. I want to tell you this story. I'm hoping you can see the screen. I know it's light out here, but let's see if this should work. Hit the line. Boom. Hit the thing. So this is the book Pride of a Lion, and it starts with this guy. Okay, you can't see it a little bit. This is the first male lion ever born at the zoo. Male cub. He was the only one in the litter. His mother, first-time mother. Well, let's start at the beginning of the story. Let's start with these guys. This is Jabari, and this is brother Kwame. Now, these guys were brothers. They grew up together. They loved each other. I mean, yes, they did. They would play with each other. They'd sleep. They'd lay on top of each other. They'd fall asleep. They had great times. Everything was great. You know what? Until we introduced the females. Why? Because this is Asha and Kashifa. Females make males stupid. And these guys, who were the best of friends, loved each other, always getting along very well. They'd run around and play with each other. As soon as the females come out, he would go, I hate you. I'm going to kill you. They had these epic battles. Do you remember in Lion King? These battles were unbelievable. I'm shooting these at about 20 frames per second. Okay, look at these. These animals are all each over 400 pounds apiece. They were going at each other to kill each other. God said, "Oh my gosh, this is not going to end. This is going to. One of them's going to die." And you hear the sounds. There's you see them tearing chunks of hair out of her mane, laying it until it's unbelievable to watch. And then you think, "Oh my God, one's going to die." And then all of a sudden, one says, "No, I'm done, Uncle." He runs away. So what's the first thing the winner does? Sorry to the female. How you doing? Did you see what I did? Did you see how strong I was? And she's like, oh yes I did. You're so handsome. And she would follow him around, and she's reaching the peak of her season. She'd go, oh my God, you're so handsome. But he was a little slow getting to the point that she wanted to get to, which was of course breeding. Okay? She's at the peak. Now let me explain something to you. Lions are the only social cats in the world. Having said that, when a female is not in her cycle, she wants nothing to do with the male. The male always wants something to do with the female. It's kind of a common cause in all species. But there are times when the female says, hey, listen, leave me alone. But when she reaches the peak, she wants to get his attention. Now, when he doesn't really get the program, I'm going to explain something else to you. In the animal kingdom, urine is the #1 catalyst to sex. Okay? If you have your dogs, you walk your dog. You know, if you're walking your male dog, what does he do? He doesn't let it all out at once because he's marking his territory. He's trying to live his calling card. A female, when she's in heat, will start spotting. Okay, because she's also leaving her calling card. Now, if the male lion doesn't get the point, she knows how to get the point. She backs right into him and she literally urinates in his face. He takes that urine and he does a behavior called phlegming. And basically that's the analogy I like to use. It's kind of like a wine tasting, okay? You want to make sure you don't have any wine before it's time. And he does this thing, and he's kind of closing his nostrils because there's an organ in the roof of the mouth of lions and many animals called the Jacobson's organ, which is like a little computer. And it breaks down the urine and tells him, oh, she's at the peak of her cycle. She's ready to go. So once he sees that, he says, yes, yes, yes. So he goes over closer to her, and she looks at him. She goes, yes, now you got the point, right? And she goes, I want attention now. So then he gives her attention. Okay, they have the little attention thing. They flip on over, have a little roll in the grass. And he's thinking, this is fantastic. Why? Because when she's at the peak of her breeding cycle, he will breed her every 20 minutes for 3 days. Every 20 minutes for 3 days. Here's the deal, though. When she's done, she's done. He thinks he's died and gone to heaven. So he thinks, this is going to be the rest of my life. This is fantastic. And then all of a sudden, she's done. And he tries again. And she goes, get up! And he goes, what? this is fantastic, 3 days, what's the, get away from me! And the crazy was not, please, remember what we felt? No, get away from me! And he runs away because he thinks she's out of her mind. But then we realized about 3 months later, why she was just using him, basically. And his service was over with, so he's done. Now this is the cub. He was the only one born in the litter. And we're thinking to ourselves, okay, lions usually have 2 to 6 cubs in the litter. But this was her first litter, his first time mom, so it's okay. But we started to realize when we did exams on him, we weighed him, do the exam, he was not gaining weight the way he was supposed to. He was not thriving. And the reason was, because being only 1 cub, because she was a first-time mother, he was not stimulating her enough to produce enough milk. And she was literally drying out. You know, when you have cats, 4 to 6 cubs, they're, and that milk is constantly producing. That wasn't happening with Kashifa. So we had a problem. How are we going to supplement this cat without pulling him from its mother? That's the last thing we want to do. Anybody who saw that train wreck of a show, Tiger King, it's the worst thing you could ever do is pull a cub away from its mother. Okay? So how are we going to do this? Well, fortunately, Kashifa had a really, Asha's the mother, had a really good relationship with the keepers, and she actually allowed the cub to come up to a barrier where we were able to put a bottle in the barrier, and the cub would drink the bottle. So we were able to supplement the cub that way. And it got to be a regular routine where every 4 hours we would supplement them to the point where we could actually convince him to come to a separate enclosure where we could take him out, or not in with Asha, take him out and do closer examinations on him. That was great. You know, people look at these pictures and they go, oh my gosh, he's so cute. I want to pet him, I want to hold him. No, you don't. He was a nasty little cub. He would come at you and it was just horrible. But that's what we wanted. We wanted them to be a lion. These animals are not meant to be pets, so we wanted them to hate people. We wanted them to be afraid to keep that distance. Now, what happened was, okay, so now he started to thrive again, but then all of a sudden, boom, he stopped feeding. His weight started to drop. His blood work was showing some massive infection. Now, keep in mind, when he was born at the zoo, I sent out a press release to the entire media. Lion's been born. Now, anytime an animal's been born at the zoo, we don't put that animal out on habitat, by the way. We give it usually several weeks with its mother to make sure it's bonding, to make sure it's getting the milk. Like with this guy, if we put him out, we would not have been able to really control what was going on. So I said, we'll let you know when we get ready to put him out on habitat. Now, every week I'm getting calls from the media. So when is he coming out? When is he coming out? Everyone wants to see it. And then all of a sudden the veterinarians came to me and said, we don't think he's going to make it. Everything we're treating him with is not working. He's crashing. He's not eating. And you better be prepared. And I literally wrote his obituary. I wrote his obituary getting ready to send it out to the media. And as I was waiting any minute for him to die, all of a sudden, they were giving him all kinds of treatments and injections and all kinds of things. All of a sudden, he just all bounced back. He woke up one morning, he was like, I'm hungry. And it was fantastic. It's like he fought out that infection, and it was like, oh my gosh, the happiest day ever. And that's when the vet said, okay, we're ready. We can put him out on habitat. And that first day when we put those mother and son out on habitat, I still get emotional thinking about it. There was hundreds of volunteers in the front to see this, and they stepped out, and this is what they saw. When she came out with her cub, it was just one of the most beautiful things ever. He would go around the habitat. He was exploring everywhere. He'd jump around, like that little scene in Lion King where I can't wait to be king. He'd be prancing around, looking around, I can't wait to be king. He'd see something like a little bug or something, and he'd snarl at it like he was the boss. It was really incredible to watch this kind of developing coming out of the thing. But what was really amazing was watching this bond with his mother, Asha. She was just the most amazing mother I have ever seen. Because this cub demanded so much attention. He would not leave her alone. Now, those of you who are mothers, you know that you love nothing more than your children. Having said that, sometimes you need a break. And you can see that in Asha's face every now and then. He'd keep on going, Mom, I want more time. And she'd look at him, please, leave me alone. Just give me a minute. I need a minute for myself. But then right afterwards, she'd say, okay, and sit down next to her, and then he'd cuddle up to her again, and then she'd be always looking around, making sure everything's safe, and Mom, I want attention. She'd say, look, let me just walk away. Let me just walk away. He'd go, no, you can't go, Mom. And he'd look at her face, please, I need a minute, please. And you see it, and then the most amazing thing would happen. She would never hit him with discipline. She just, the expression on her face, I can see it. Listen, I'm so tired of this cup right now, but that's what I gotta do. He'd look up like, Mom, please. And then she would literally put out her massive paw, and he'd put his little paw right into that little paw of hers. As if to say, Mom. And I again, I've taken every one of these images. I swear to you, none of them are AI, none of them are Photoshop. This is everything I've taken. I love that osprey in the background. How great is that? Who does a talk with an osprey? It's fantastic. He'd look up at her like, Mom, I need a hug. And then literally, Mom would give him a hug. In a way that I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. So it was really such a magical thing developing, watching in front of me, to see them just out in the habitat, exploring. All these great things were happening. I couldn't have been happier ever. I mean, I thought this was the most beautiful thing to watch, this constant development, the constant thing. I mean, it was just absolutely spectacular. Everything's going beautifully, right? And then you know what happened? Mom died. All of a sudden, she had an acute sepsis that occurred in the intestinal tract, and she died all of a sudden. It was one of the most heartbreaking moments I've ever experienced in the 46 years that I was living. Not only had we lost a beautiful lioness, now we had an orphan cub that was just wailing. If you heard him, just it would go right through you. And we didn't know what we were going to do. Now what happened was, remember, Asha has a sister named Kashifa. Kashifa, several weeks after Kwasi was born, had 4 cubs. And her cubs were very healthy, and because she had 4 cubs, she was producing tons of milk, and we thought, well, because lions are social, maybe we can introduce Kwasi to Kashifa and she would adopt him. I've seen it happen in the wild, so it is possible. We did that, and sure enough, she did. She took him in, and it was fantastic. When you see the 4 cubs playing, and then you see Kwasi there in the center with the stick in his mouth. You see he's a little bit bigger than the other cubs because he's older. But she took him in. Not only did she take him in, but she seemed to give him extra attention. He was the one that was always close to her. Even when her own cubs tried to get next to her, she wouldn't let him. I mean, Kwasi was on her like white on rice. I mean, I got to the point where I wanted to go over and slap him and say, leave her alone for a little while. Her own biological cubs would try to go up and he'd jump right in front of them and say, no, she's mine. And pushing the little biological cubs away from him in the back. And I mean, he would non-stop be on her, playing with her, walk by her side, walking on her belly, everywhere. Even when she tried to sleep, he would jump on her, he'd bite her in the head. I'm telling you, I got to the point, I really wanted to go out there and go, leave her alone. Geez, you're lucky she took you in. You could be an orphan, okay? And instead of her disciplining him, she would only constantly reassure him, taking care of him. It was just one of the most beautiful things you could ever imagine seeing. And then to watch him bond with his adopted siblings, teaching them how to be a lion. He'd roughhouse with them and stuff, but they wouldn't run away from him. They would run to him. They enjoyed the rough play. He was like their big brother. He'd teach them how to play around, grab and fetch sticks and do all kinds of stuff. He'd beat them around a little bit, knock them over, but they loved it. They loved the roughhousing. He was teaching them how to be a lion. It was really just a spectacular time to watch this entire development, to watch how they always were together, and it was always him in the center. They always surrounded him. He was always in the center. Now the important thing is that not only was he bonding with these cubs, but he was bonding with his now adopted mother, who was teaching him how to be a lion. For instance, anybody who has cats, you like to have a scratching post, right, for your cat. And people think it's always for the claws. It has nothing to do with the claws. They have scent glands on their paws, and they're always marking their territory by doing that. And he'd watch his mother do that, his adopted mother, Kashifa. And he'd look up at her and he'd imitate her. He would copy those behaviors. And you can see how a lion teaches her cubs how to do different things. So now we got it great, right? We've got this great family. We got adopted him. He's got siblings. He's got adopted mother. Are we done yet? No. Because we've got to introduce a man. But here's the problem. The father of Kwasi is not the father of the 4 cubs. While Kwame was breeding Asha, who was the father and mother of Kwasi, Jabari took advantage and went and bred his sister, Kashifa. So those are Jabari's cubs. So we got a problem. I'll tell you why. And I've seen it happen in the wild. It's heart-wrenching. Male lions will instinctively kill cubs that are not theirs. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one reason is they want to make sure only their bloodline is making it to the next generation. Okay. But the other thing is also, while those cubs are alive, they take over a pride, the females won't breed. When the cubs are killed, the females stop cycling and they're ready to breed again. So there's a reason why you have that fear. Now our fear was, okay, so who are we going to select? Which male are we going to introduce to Kashifa? Well, that was a pretty easy decision. It was going to be Jabari, because at the very worst he would kill Kwasi, but he wouldn't kill the 4 cubs. We're not going to put Kwame in there, he's going to kill the 4 cubs. We want to do the survival the most, But we thought, there's a way we can soft introduce them. So what we did was we put them next to each other behind the scenes with a barrier between them to see the reaction between. Kwasi always stayed as far back as he could. Now, having said that, Jabari didn't seem to pay much attention to him in that back corner. We thought that was a good sign. The other cubs and Kashifa would come up to the bars, and Jabari would look at him and he'd chuckle, which is a happy thing. We said, okay, great. He knows his cubs, he seems to accept his cubs. We finally made the decision this time to give him access. We knew that if Jabari was going to kill Kwasi, it would happen in 1 second. There's nothing we can do. Again, I've seen it happen. They let Jabari, they break back one bite and it's over. So on pins and needles, we opened the enclosure. We first put Kashifa and all 5 cubs out there just to get established, give them a little time to get established out there. And they were out there really for a few weeks by themselves. But we put them out there first in the morning, a few minutes, and then we gave Jabari access. Now keep in mind, Jabari hasn't been with Kashifa for months. So as soon as we opened the door, gave him access, what's the first thing Jabari did? He went right to Kashifa. Oh my God, I missed you so much. I missed you so much. And once he got over those cordial platitudes, he said, what are these? Are these my children? And these cubs had not had that direct access to him. So they're looking at him like, man, he's big, geez, oh, you're scaring me. But he was like, no. Let me see, let me smell you. Let me make sure. No, you're gonna get it. No, don't be afraid. I am your father. And, he went to all the cubs and he gently would paw them. He gently smelled them. It was so gentle. He wasn't, every one of them reaffirmed. Yes, you're mine. Yes, my son, my daughter. Okay, this went on. Kwasi always ran away and always made sure that Kashifa was between him and Jabari. And he doesn't seem to pay attention to Kwasi, which I thought was a good sign. So this went on, and even when he greeted all his own cubs, look at the way Kwasi was always as far away from him and always made sure that Kashifa was between him and Jabari. Even when they laid down, Kwasi would lay down the furthest away and always made sure Kashifa was between him and Jabari. Then all of a sudden this happened, and this is where the red flag went up. I said, uh-oh, we may have problems. Jabari got up and started walking right towards where all the cubs were laying down. Now I want you to look at the body language here, because this tells you a lot. Immediately as he did that, Kashifa also got up. He walked up and looked at him. Now look at all the cubs with their ears up. Those are his cubs. Those are his cubs going, oh, that's Dad. But look at who Jabari is looking straight at. And look at the ears on that cub, Kwasi. His ears are flat back. You can't see his face, but I saw it. It was like he was scared out of his mind. Kashifa knew it. She stood up. What you don't hear in this photograph is Kashifa's going, as if to tell him, don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. Well, he took another step forward towards Kwasi, and she said, I told you not to think about it! Kwasi backed off, and she got right in between them and immediately went to Kwasi, as if to say, it's okay. I've got you. I'm protecting you. I was amazed by that, because keep in mind, Jabari is almost 100 pounds heavier than Kashifa. He could easily kill her if he wanted to. But this was different. This wasn't Kashifa. This was Kwasi's mom. And this was a whole different thing. But I realized then, Jabari knew very well that Kwasi wasn't his, and Jabari had an agenda. Jabari, if he had the opportunity, was going to hurt or kill Kwasi. And that worried me. And then I saw behavior that really made me concerned. I saw Jabari, if anybody's ever been to our zoo, he walked over to the back of the habitat, it's a berm, and he hid behind the berm. I said, why would he do that? He's never done that. He always likes to stay around with the other lions. Well, then I realized why he did it. So Kwasi's playing with his cubs and Kashifa all around, and all of a sudden he looks up and he doesn't see Jabari. Now remember, he had been out on the habitat for weeks without Jabari on there. He's thinking, oh, Jabari's gone again, so I can go out and start exploring on my own. And I'm yelling across the road, don't do it, stay with your mother, stay there, don't. Well, he started walking. And as soon as he started walking away, Jabari was watching from the top of the berm, and he started to come over the berm. And he's got an agenda, he's coming at him. And I realized Kwasi still doesn't see him, he's coming behind the tree, and then all of a sudden, and I thought I was going to photograph the death of Kwasi. All of a sudden, Jabari lunges from the back of the tree, and I've never seen a cub scream and run so fast in my life. He just screamed and ran to his mother, ah! And she turned around, I'll kill you if you touch him. She went at him so hard, that he urinated all over himself in fear, running away with his tail between his legs. I'd never seen anything like it. I was so moved by that because I was shaking. I thought, oh my God, I thought the cub was going to get killed. And then all of a sudden she came in there and she scared this massive male to his core. He literally urinated all over himself in fear and ran away. This next photograph is my favorite photo, and I've taken millions of photographs in my career. This is my favorite photograph I've ever taken, so I'll never forget taking it, and to this day I still get emotional thinking about it. Because after Jabari ran to the other side, urine all over himself, like a little baby, of course Kwasi ran the other way. Kwasi standing under the tree, literally shivering. He just saw his life flash in front of him. Kashifa looked over her shoulder, saw him there, and slowly started walking towards him. I said, God, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? She lowered her head, she took her paw, she pulled him in, and she just held him in a way that I will never, ever forget. As if to tell him, I'm your mom, I will always protect you, don't worry. And from that moment, from that confrontation she had with Jabari changed totally. Not only did he not come looking for Kwasi, with his own cubs, he was like, oh my God, I love you all, you're just the best. Oh, everybody, I love everybody, I'm just not. He was so afraid of Kashifa. He was so afraid of Kashifa that even when his cubs would come and bite him, you know, like, normally they bite him and he'd pop them in the face, and you don't do that, I'm your father, you know. Since that incident, he'd look at them like, oh, if it wasn't for your mother, I'll tell you what happened. But we still didn't have that connection with Kwasi. Okay, now, I will tell you, he literally tried to avoid Kwasi. If he saw Kwasi kind of walking where he was, he walked the other way because he was so afraid Kashifa would come at him. But then what happened was he was laying down, sleeping on the top of the berm, and Kashifa went up to Kwasi and said, I'm paraphrasing because I don't know what she said to him, but I'm telling you what appeared she said to him, follow me. He got up, he started walking along Kashifa, and they started walking towards where Jabari was lying down. And I could see Kwasi looking up at her like, what are you doing? He tried to kill me the last time we were close. Why are you bringing it to him? She was like, let's go. And she stopped like 10 feet from him. And the whole time, Jabari's looking like, is she coming to beat me up? What is she doing? Is she coming to beat me up? I mean, you can see the fear in his face. I don't know what to do. And she stopped, and as if motioned to Kwasi, walked to him. And Kwasi said, are you serious? Walked to him. And Kwasi, very slowly, step by step, started walking. And I said, what is he going to do here? Is Jabari just going to get up and run away? What's he going to do? And that's when one of my second favorite pictures is when he got close to him. Jabari just embraced him. He just opened his massive paws and took him in. It was the most amazing thing. And right after Jabari did that is when Kashifa went to Jabari and gave him a hug. Everything changed. The whole dynamics changed. It was like she was saying, okay, we're a family. We're a family now. I can trust you. And I'm telling you, everything worked out beautifully after that. It was the most beautiful story ever. This lion, who was orphaned at a young age, almost died from sickness at a young age. Here he is when he's, 6 weeks old. And people say, God, he's never going to make it. He's got so many challenges, all these bad things going wrong. You want to see what he looks like today? He lives at Lion Country Safari. 3 weeks ago, he became a grandfather. And he is literally one of the most beautiful lions I have ever seen. He's a stunning lion. These are his first two kids, Atlas and Mara, that were born. And this is his son now, who just became a father. This is father and son. It's a story that, to me, it shows people that animals have these feelings. Animals have these dynamics. Family is something that transcends species. This taught me a lot, just like in The Lion King. This little cub hurdled all challenges and really gave me a sense of pride and a sense of understanding of what these animals are like. So, my message is that, there is no animal that's more important than a human, but having said that, coexisting is important for the health of all of us. By protecting these animals, by protecting these things, these natural things around us, we're protecting ourselves. When you think about the bats, the bees, the butterflies, the pollinators of this world, 1 out of every 3 bites of food we put in our mouth is connected directly to a pollinator. Whether it be the coral reefs that protect our shorelines, whether it be the rainforests that provide us with medicines and oxygen, all these things, though we may never see them, face to face, they're important to our quality of life. So the story is about protecting wildlife, protecting ourselves, and understanding those animals that we have. So thank you very much. I appreciate your patience.